All right, we're back for another analyze and breakdown of the NHL. So we just did before in the last video Central Division, and now we are going to do the Pacific Division, which has teams such as the Knights, the Oilers, Flames, Canucks, Coyotes, Ducks, Sharks, and of course the best team in the league, the LA Kings. so
We got some good competition for best team in the league with Detroit.
Yes. Oh yeah, definitely. Let's start with these Golden Knights because there's a lot to talk about this team. Obviously, back, you're looking 2 seasons ago, in their first season, they went all the way to the Stanley Cup final.
Winning the first game of the Stanley Cup final, too.
That's true, yet losing in the series to the Capitals, getting their first championship. But anyways, talking about the Golden Knights.
Yeah, Golden Knights.
They're sitting at 80 points right now. 8-1-1 in their last 10, and they're on an 8-game winning streak coming into tonight.
Hottest team in the league right now.
In my opinion, yes, that is true. I mean, some things I don't understand about this team, because to be honestly, I don't know why they traded Subban for Robin Lehner, because honestly, goaltender-wise, to me, they're kind of even. They're not necessarily one better than the other. And then the acquisition of Nick Cousins, I forget where they got him from.
Montreal, right?
It was Montreal. Okay. And then, trying to think, there was one other player they got. I can't remember. Did they get another one? Oh, no, maybe they didn't. But anyways, yeah, so here's the thing. The Golden Knights, you look where they were back in the fall, all the way up till probably the middle of January, they were actually within the wild card area, if not out of the playoffs at one point. And you look at now, they're just completely bouncing back, and now they're literally in the top of the West. I'm pretty sure they're number 1 in the West at the moment, right up top of the Oilers. And I'm just predicting, honestly, I'm predicting they're going to go all the way to the Western Final. Looking at the other Western Conference team at the moment, they're within the top 2 or 3 easily. What are your opinions?
So I'm going to throw a random stat at you.
All right.
Or a random number. In a span of a month, so from February 8th until March 3rd, the Golden Knights are playing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 games. How many of those games do you think are at home versus how many are on the road?
More than half of them, I'm sure.
The Golden Knights, in that span, have played 8 games at home and have 2 more to go, compared to only 2 games on the road. So I don't necessarily buy that they're the hottest team in hockey. I know I said that earlier, but I don't know if I necessarily buy it with all these home games that they've been playing. And here's the thing. Within that time span, they played and lost to the Minnesota Wild, getting shut out by them. And they had the Anaheim Ducks take them to overtime. The Anaheim Ducks took them to overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Those are their 2 road games in that span. I think this is a team that's electric at home, but can't win on the road. There's a lot of teams like that, but I think Vegas is going to be the most known right now. I don't think Vegas is going to make a big run unless they get a top seed. If Vegas can win out or can win the West, and they're the 1 seed, I think they have a decent shot. But if they fall and they get the 2 seed in the Pacific or the 3 seed, they're in trouble. They're a very good home team, not as good road team.
Right. No, here's another thing. At the same time, obviously, if they finish at the top of the Western Conference and the Pacific Division, of course, there's obviously a huge chance of them getting home advantage in the first round, which is huge, right. Obviously. Because judging the last couple of years how they played at home, their winning percentage was quite literally insane. I mean, obviously, looking at last year, they lost in that Game 7, of course, remember, to the San Jose Sharks with all this bogus refereeing stuff and everything. But obviously, that was on the road. You look in the home games, and there was only one home game, I believe, in the series. 1 or 2 home... I'm trying to think. I think it was 1 home game in Vegas where the San Jose Sharks won, and that was the first Game 7. If I'm not wrong. I might be wrong. I don't remember. But
I would like to point out that of the 2 of us, one of us was rooting for the Golden Knights and the other wasn't. And one of us was laughing at the call that gave the Sharks championship or the West that series, and it wasn't me, it was you. You were rooting for the Sharks.
Yeah, it was, man. I don't want. See, honestly, in my opinion, I don't want the Knights to win it within the first 5 seasons at least, because it's not fair to the other teams. And I honestly, like, that just goes back to the way the expansion draft worked. I just think that was kind of unfair to the league. And obviously the rules have changed for the upcoming Seattle franchise, but
oh, that's gonna be fun too.
That's another whole story to talk about. All right, let's move on to the getting a little 5 minutes on that one team. Let's get on to the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, with the return recently of McDavid, Draisaitl, Darnell Nurse, Cassian just came back from his suspension recently. They're on a 1-game winning streak, 5-3-1 in their last 10, second in the Pacific with 76 points, 4 behind Vegas. And they do have 1 game in hand on Vegas at the moment. But what do you? Honestly, in my opinion, obviously the Oilers going to make the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. With 1 month to go,
right.
But the question is, will they get past the first round? And that will depend on, to be honest, who they play.
Right.
Because look at last year. They missed the playoffs last year.
Don't forget, McDavid got hurt in what was it like?
Yeah, in the beginning of the season.
Mid-March last season.
What was it? Oh, I think it was January. Was January last season with the knee? Was that the knee injury?
Yeah, the knee injury.
Where he literally knocked him out the rest of the season. He wasn't going to come back till at least training camp or something.
You're right. It was earlier.
I think it was January sometime.
February.
But yeah. Well, the thing, and now it's this year. It's like it's the opposite. Now they got him back for the time when they really need him to put the points toward to decide whether or not. Obviously, they'll get home advantage, or how far they can even get in the playoffs. Because he's obviously a huge key player. Look at all the goals, the highlight reel goals.
Well, that's why they call him McFranchise.
McFranchise, yeah. That's what the. I was watching a video about him from like back in his like junior years and back in high school and stuff. And one of his coaches that was coaching him when he was like probably like 13 or 14 years old said this guy is gonna one day be amazing and just as good as Gretzky. But we'll have to see about that one. Because I know you have a lot to say about that.
The Edmonton is a very top-heavy team. They have him and Draisaitl. You're hard-pressed to find another player on that team that can consistently score goals, excluding James Neal when he randomly decided to show up at the start of the season this past year.
That's true.
I mean, that was random as heck, and nobody really saw that coming. But Edmonton, I mean, if Vegas is the 1 seed, I just don't think Edmonton's really in the same discussion as Vegas when it comes to a team. I think Edmonton has the best player right now in the game. The best player right now in the game. I'm going to stress that. But I don't think McFranchise and Draisaitl can carry this team past maybe a first round series. And that, again, like you said, depends on who they play.
I mean, yeah, that, and at the same time, even let's say for some crazy reason they got all the way to the Western Conference final or the Stanley Cup final. Like, obviously the teams that we play against, like whether it was the Flyers or the Bruins or the Capitals, like the difference between them and the Oilers is they have numerous, more than one line of just strong players.
Exactly.
And the Oilers have kind of just one solemnly great line, and the others are just they're just hanging in there kind of thing. They're not producing as much as they should be, obviously, and that will reflect on the outcome of their playoff appearance.
Exactly.
All right, let's move along here a little faster. We're at 9.5 minutes. Let's. I don't have much to say about this next team, Calgary Flames. To be honest, I think I would have thought they would have been lower than they are right now. Currently sitting third in the Pacific, 75 points, 5 behind the first place Knights, 5-4-1 in their last 10. And to be honest, I don't really have much other to say to them about, besides the fact that I just think the playoffs are going to be a struggle for them, to be honest.
The Flames are a team that if they're hot, they're hot. But we saw it earlier in the season. When they're cold, they're cold. They had like 3 consecutive games where they didn't score a single goal. With Johnny Hockey and all those other guys on your team, you need to score goals. Come on, you got the good Kachuk, Johnny Gaudreau. You should be scoring goals. But they're right around where I expected them to be because of the division they're in.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily. They're not going to make a run. I think they're definitely a one and done team in the playoffs.
Okay. All right. So that's the Canucks. Moving down, we have the Arizona Coyotes currently sitting at 72 points, 2 back from Vancouver. Did I skip the Vancouver Canucks?
You skipped the Vancouver Canucks.
That's all right. I didn't have much about to say.
Just because your team caused the city to riot doesn't mean you can just ignore them.
All right. Hey, we won the cup in 2011. They needed the riots. It's okay. I shouldn't have said that. All right, moving on. So we got the Vancouver Canucks sitting at 74 points, 1 behind the Calgary Flames. Obviously, they're fighting for the playoff spot. They've lost their last 2, 4-5-1 their last 10. Obviously, key players to note: Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser.
Yep.
And
their captain.
We got their other player. Oh my god! Why do I keep blanking on the captain, dude? Oh my god. What's his name? What's his name? Just tell me his name.
Bo Horvat.
Bo Horvat, yes. But besides them 3, honestly, I just don't think it's there for them to get far in the playoffs at all. Like, I don't.
Who's their goalie? It's Markstrom, but he's hurt, right?
So Jacob Markstrom, the backup. Oh, I'm trying to remember.
Oh my gosh, Demko.
Yes, Demko.
I can't think of his first
name. Thatcher
Demko.
Yeah.
It is Thatcher. Okay. Yeah, Thatcher Demko. He's solid, but
yes.
He can't carry a team in the playoffs.
Yep.
He's no Jordan Binnington.
No, not so. Yeah, they don't. Both Markstrom and Demko don't have enough experience that they would be able to carry a team easily into the Western Conference final. Easily, it's not going to happen. And honestly, they'd be kind of lucky to get past the first round. But I mean, you never know what can happen. So
it's hockey.
It's hockey. You'll have to just see about that.
The best team usually doesn't win the Stanley Cup.
Well, we'll see about that. I mean, I feel like you're saying that because of last year. I mean, Tampa got blanked by the Blue Jackets, but you know.
Hey, all 4 Division League winners last season did not advance to the second round.
That's true, but okay, that's true. All right, let's move on here. We got 4 more teams to go. Sitting at number 5, we got the Arizona Coyotes, 2 back of the Canucks at 72 points, 5-4-1 in their last 10, and they're only on a 1-game winning streak. I don't know, to be honest, I would have thought they would have been higher. They were higher than they were now earlier in the season, and they kind of slacked off. I mean, they got Phil Kessel, which was a great acquisition. And then, of course, recently, like within the last month or 2, they got Taylor Hall, which was another addition. But I think it's just kind of too late now where it's like, if they had them both in October and November, they would have had a better chance to make up some more ground that they had to do. But I just think it's kind of fizzling out slowly for them.
I'm hoping that they can have a decent playoff run this year because they have a couple, guys who have been with that team for a while that deserve a run in the playoffs. Namely, Oliver Ekman-Larsson. That guy deserves a chance to play playoff hockey. He's been with that team. He's been a grinder for the past, 7 years? 6-7 years?
Yeah, long time.
Now, Arizona, I think your biggest problem if you're Arizona is, do you even have a fan base, honestly?
That's true.
You don't have home ice advantage, to an extent. Now, of course, every team does better at home, but you really don't have a home ice advantage. So, I think if they had Taylor Hall earlier, like you said, in October, I think they'd be in a better position. I think they'd be the 3 seed in the Pacific, maybe the 2 seed. But I mean, they're an interesting team. They're a good team, but I don't think they have it in them to make a playoff run this year.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same as on my mind. I mean, if they did, I feel like there's a chance they could get swept. Which, I mean, you make the playoffs is good, but you want to put forth enough effort where you don't get embarrassed in the playoffs like the Lightning last year, even though they were like expected to go all the way. You know, they won the President's Trophy, they didn't win the Stanley Cup. But that's another story, folks. All right, let's move on to the bottom three favorite teams in the league right now.
Oh my gosh.
We got the one, the only Anaheim Ducks. 64 games played, sitting 12 points below the Coyotes at 60 points.
Oh my gosh.
4-4-2 in their last 10. They've won their last 2, but let's say they're out of it, okay? Just minus 34 differential. So all I have to say about them is obviously the bottom 3 teams we're talking about right now are in rebuild. I think the Ducks are still in the beginning of the rebuild. I don't know how and why they still have Gibson. No offense to any Ducks fans. And obviously was it this past year they fired their head coach? Or was it last year?
It was prior to the season.
Randy Carlyle, they got rid of Randy Carlyle.
Right.
But it's like, I don't know, they're a work in progress. Next year, I can't even tell you where I think they're going to be next year. It all depends who they bring up, if anybody, from the minor leagues and how the draft goes this year. So, do you have anything to say on them?
Hopefully for them, the lottery goes properly because they need some good young players. But I don't understand why they traded Kasha to the Bruins. You got some okay players back.
And
I don't understand why you traded Nick Ritchie to the Bruins in 2 separate trades. Those are younger guys that you can build around. But at the same time, I think, like you said, they're starting their rebuild now.
Right.
You might as well trade off your assets that are, in their 20s for guys that are younger or draft picks. I think Anaheim's going to be a bottom-tier team for a couple years, unfortunately for Ryan Getzlaf.
Mm-hmm.
But I think John Gibson is one of the most likely players to be moved via trade this offseason.
All right, so definitely a lot of work to do with the Anaheim Ducks and, of course, their organization as their season slowly comes to a close with only a month and a couple days left in the hockey season for them. Going on to the next team, which honestly, this is going to be a surprise to me, the San Jose Sharks. Second to last in the Pacific. 65 games played, registered the same amount of points, 60 points. 4-6 in their last 10, 2-game winning streak. So this is what I got to say about them. Obviously, they recently got rid of Marlowe. They gave him to Pittsburgh. Obviously, they had a coaching change when they got rid of DeBoer and brought in the guy that used to be the coach of the Panthers before Gallant was there. I forget his name. I don't know why I'm blanking on it, but you know the guy. And obviously, there's a lot of work to be done now because so I pulled up the standings from last year. The Western Conference last year, San Jose Sharks finished the season with 101 points.
Oof.
Second in the West, all right? Right now, they're currently only at 60 points. I'm not even going to project. They're probably going to get maybe 78 to 80 points at the max, probably by the end of the season. And, of course, they're going to finish within the bottom 2 or 3 teams in the West. So a complete rewind. And to be honest, so the biggest problem with them was the past summer they lost a lot of players. They lost Pavelski. They lost numerous players. I don't know why I can't remember them at the moment. But key players that they shouldn't have lost. Braun. Braun was the other guy.
Justin Braun's a good player, but, I mean, the trade that they were offered, they couldn't refuse.
So, clearly it'll be interesting to see how they do in the draft. And other than that, I'm just going to say, hopefully a brighter end to their future, their season next year.
So, why the Sharks are so low is, don't forget, they lost Tomas Hertl to a torn ACL, and then they lost Erik Karlsson recently as well to a season-ending injury. So those are two of your best players. And my big question to Sharks fans, Shark management, and everything like that, why did you not trade Joe Thornton? Why are you keeping him on your team? The man's a Hall of Famer, and he deserves a chance to compete for a Stanley Cup, and you're not giving it to him. It's a shame. He's upset with management. I don't blame him.
That's true. Well, that's the thing. It's almost like he was expecting to get traded because the team was already in rebuild come January when they were starting to slack off and stuff. And obviously, they still got Burns on the team. They got Evander Kane and stuff. But at the same time, Joe Thornton planning probably 95% chance he's going to retire after the season. It's like 43, I'm pretty sure. 42 or 43. And he wants a cup. The guy wants a cup. He's been playing for like 20 years. And you're telling me this guy hasn't got a cup. He's playing more than 20 years. What am I saying? He was drafted in
97, right?
6 or 97. Same thing. And he's one of the few players playing in the past 3 decades. And the guy's not. It's kind of sad because they'll give Marlowe to Pittsburgh, but they won't send Thornton anywhere.
Past 4 decades.
So.
That's what you meant.
No, sorry. Sorry about that.
Big difference.
So that is true. But so yeah, that's all I'm gonna say with the Kings. And the last team in the Pacific is no surprise for finishing in last place last year in the West.
Yet again.
Last year they finished with 71 points. They're currently at 54 points. So who knows? Who knows if they'll even break that record? 5-4-1 in their last 10. 55 games played. So the current record right now: 24 wins, 35 losses, and 6 overtime/shootout losses. So all I have to say for them is they got to start making moves, and obviously the draft hopefully should benefit them. And maybe they'll at least be within the wild card next season for these last couple seasons slacking off. Because I wouldn't be paying for a season ticket membership for them at all next year. And I'm sure their sales are going down at the moment since the team's not good. So
it's LA. Hot take, LA has some of the worst fans in all of sports. That's definitely a hot take. But look, Kings are garbage. I got a fun question for you without looking it up. So the Kings are 0-3 in the shootout this year so far, as of this recording. There are 2 other teams that are winless in shootouts. Can you tell me who they are? They're both surprising.
Are they in the East or West?
Both are in the East. One's Metropolitan, one's Atlantic.
Is one of them the Carolina?
Nope. Columbus Blue Jackets, and perhaps the most surprising team, the Boston Bruins, 0-7 in the shootout this year.
I was going to say them. I know they're not doing good in overtimes either, but we'll get to that. But
so the Kings are in a weird position, but the Kings aren't getting any better. They're a couple years away from competing again. But they got their Stanley Cup, so what are they complaining about? I'm surprised they didn't trade Jeff Carter. That's probably one of my biggest trade deadline surprises.
Mm-hmm.
He had so many rumors about him, but
I don't think did they make any moves at the deadline?
No major moves I'm aware of.
No big moves at all. No, if anything, it was minor league moves or something.
Because they made they made a trade earlier on, like a week or 2 before, but that was pretty much it with Toronto, right? That was them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't even a big trade. So
no, that wasn't at all.
Kings need to get their act together if they want to really compete.
Mm-hmm.
But
all right, well, that pretty much wraps up the Pacific Division. Of course, we talked about a few more things on that one than we did for the Central Division, because, of course, there's a little more potential in the Pacific Division. And, of course, the next upcoming videos will, of course, be the Atlantic Division and the Metropolitan Division, which will guarantee be longer videos, because not only do me and Eric have more knowledge of these teams because they're in the East, which is where we live, but obviously the teams are produce a lot more points, put it that way, and besides the Red Wings, of course.
You're forgetting the Senators.
I was looking at them. I just didn't want to embarrass them because they already been embarrassed themselves. Oh.
Oh man.
All right, so this
I'll trash them later. Don't worry.
Oh, don't worry. We might make a whole separate video for the Red Wings, calling why is their season, why are they not relocating somehow? But we'll get there.
Simple history.
That's true. Thanks a lot, Joe Arena. All right, let's move on and end this video. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, whatever you want. We got plenty more of these videos, not only hockey related, but of course NASCAR, soccer, baseball, football, and maybe a tad bit of basketball here and there. So we will see you in the next video, which will be the Eastern Conference. Thanks for watching.